here's the other part. Okay, so a cell has 300 osmoles in it, okay? That's the equivalent of what's inside of the cell.
Okay.
Two numbers that I don't know if they'll tell you, but some teachers expect their students to memorize it, so I don't know what your teacher expects. But 0.9%
That's
NaCl
right.
solution is equal to 300 osmoles. Okay? A 5% solution of dextrose is equal to 300 osmoles.
Okay.
Okay. So if I put a cell in a 0.9% NaCl solution, what is its osmolarity? Is it hyper, hypo, or isoosmotic?
The isoosmotic.
Okay, isoosmotic. How about tonicity?
It would just, nothing would happen. It would just.
So it's going to be isotonic.
Oh, isotonic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's forever.
But you're fine. You said what was going to happen.
Right. Forgot the word.
Okay, now if I put the cell in a 5% dextrose solution, what's the osmolarity?
Isoosmotic.
Isoosmotic. What about tonicity?
Isotonic.
No.
Oh, wait.
What do these guys do?
Penetrate.
They penetrate.
So it would be hypertonic. I forgot which one it is. I forgot which one's which.
Okay.
But the cell will slow a little bit, or it'll diffuse into the cell.
So this, so where's there going to be a higher amount of water?
Oh.
That wasn't a good way to phrase it. I apologize. It's going to be hypotonic is what's going to happen. Sorry, my brain was, I was just phrasing things, so I was like, okay. Okay, so we're going to have particles like NaCl in here, right?
Right.
So the water's going to diffuse into the cell. Okay?
Okay.
Because these guys are penetrating particles. So if we put the 5% in here, it would equal out to 2.5 in here, 2.5 in here, right? Percent-wise.
Yeah.
So imagine that's about half, you know? So you get 150 out here, 150 in here. That means you have 450 particles in here and 150 out here. So water would want to diffuse to where there's more particles.
Brother Baker told me that hypo is where the solution is low on the outside, and then hyper is it's high on the outside. So hyper is high, hypo is low.
Hyper means above, like if you think of someone who's hyperactive. Oh yeah. And so it's above active, and then hypo, like hypothermia,
Right.
below temperature.
Okay.
But yeah.
That helped me. I didn't know.
No, that helps.
But yeah. Okay. So I know that's the confusing one.
Yeah.
So you got to think of when it's penetrating particle.
Will it say, like, on the test question, there's a penetrating particle in the solution?
I don't know. I would guess not.
Okay. But if it's dextrose, if they throw dextrose, I'll just remember
Dextrose
that
is
it's
penetrating.
Okay.
If they say glucose, treat it as penetrating, but they should use dextrose to be
Okay, 'cause
correct.
Glucose was on the practice, so that's why I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Usually, most teachers, if they say glucose, they treat it like dextrose. So
Okay.
think of glucose and dextrose as the same thing,
Okay.
because they're very similar particles, but there's some aspects of dextrose that make it penetrating versus glucose technically isn't penetrating,
Okay.
but it's used as such many times.
Okay.
But yeah.
Sweet.
Where does you guys practice test?
Yeah.
But it actually helps the overall
Big-
grade because it's 8 tests instead of 4.
Right, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. It's pick your poison.
Yeah,
Okay.
Either way, it's bad.
If I put in this cell in a 0.9% NaCl and a 5% dextrose solution, what is it going to be its osmolarity of the solution and tonicity?
I don't know.
So which one has more particles?
Which one has more?
Yeah.
Dextrose?
The cell or the solution is what I mean.
Oh,
So starting out,
the solution has more power?
the solution, 300 plus 300, that's 600 osmoles.
Right.
Okay. So the solution has more. Okay. So what means more?
Hyper.
Hyper. So the solution is hyper, more particles, right? Hyperosmotic.
Right.
Okay. What about tonicity? What's going to happen?
The dextrose is gonna go into the cell.
Okay, so dextrose is going to be half and half, so we're going to ignore him, right?
450 will be in the cell, right?
Yeah, so we're going to ignore him because he's penetrating. So he goes half and half, so we don't even have to think about it.
Right.
Okay. What would happen tonicity-wise?
So 450 would be in the cell, and then 450 would be outside the cell as well.
Yeah. So it would be
isotonic,
isotonic, but it was hyperosmotic.
but it's hyperosmotic. Okay.
Okay. Does that make sense why?
Yeah.
Okay. Trying to think. Okay. I'm going to say it's a 10% dextrose solution.
Okay.
Okay, which has more particles?
Outside,
Outside, so what is it?
it is
Which means number of particles.
hypertonic? No, hyperosmotic.
So osmotic is going to be the number of particles, remember?
So it'd be
So
hyper-
tonic tendency.
Yeah.
Tonic
okay.
tendency. Yeah. Tonic tendency.
Okay, so it'd be hyperosmotic.
Yeah. Okay. So then what about the tonicity? What happens?
Half of that, so it would be 600 inside the cell. And 300,
Yeah.
300 outside. So it'd be hypertonic and hyperosmotic.
What does hypertonic mean?
There's more.
Hypertonic would be that the cell shrinks. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So you can either think of it this way, as osmolarity being what it is before the cell's put in water, and tonicity after it's put in water. So osmolarity, you're comparing cell 300, solution 600. Well, when I put it in, that means that, so this was what, 600?
Mm-hmm.
And this was 300, right? So the solution has hypo, less.
Because it's smaller.
Right.
And so that made it so that the water flowed in.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So you can think of it, there's a couple different ways to think about it.
Okay.
So you can think about it, osmolarity, what happens beforehand, and tonicity, what happens after. So what was the tendency after it diffused across the membrane? And then, so you can remember, this has less, so it's hypo. Hypo means the water is going to go where there's more, expands.
Sweet.
The other way to think about it is you can think hypo's like a hippo, and hippos are big, so when it's going to swell, that means it's a hypotonic solution. Or hyperactive kids run around a lot, so they sweat a lot, so
Yeah.
they're going to be dehydrated, so it's going to crenate
Okay.
if it's hyper. So if it flows out, then it's going to crenate.
Okay.
Different ways to think about it.